Hello, my name is Daniel Acosta and I'm going to talk about the atom. This report will serve you well to learn something awesome and I hope that you enjoy this big milestone in the history of life. First, the I would like to say that the atoms is not a discovery that you found in one day and that's all. Many scientists through life have been discovering small pieces of this topic to understand more this idea and to make a concrete one. Secondly, the atom makes us dream about the future. This is because, as we know, if not, I will explain it later, the electrons that are outside the atom can teletransport themselves. Teletransportate means that you can change your position in the same range of time. So, the promise of the scientists is that maybe we will be able to control those particles to teletransport ourselves. Awesome. And finally, the atom is everywhere. Everywhere means that you can find in everything the atom. If we talk about chemistry, elements, if we talk about physics, material, all the things that we know, that we consume, that we use like devices are made of atoms. I don't want you to stifle in this topic because it's too vast. So I will just mention some main ideas of this, starting with the history, some benefits and problems that I found of this topic, and of course my conclusion. The first person who mentioned the atom in the history was Democritus in the year 460. Democritus' equation was the initiation of all. His question was that if you have a molecule and you start breaking that into pieces, it has to have an end. So this, in all probability, this is true, because he started experimenting with this and he started breaking into pieces that molecule, and in that moment he had to stop. When he stopped, he realized that that molecule you can't break it anymore, and that molecule had the name of atomos. In the same range of time, Aristotle, in the year 384, talked about the same thing. But he said that there's no atoms, there are elements, that all the things that we know are made of these elements: for air, water, air, and fire. This idea was a little bit wrong because, as we know now, those compounds, those things that Aristotle said are compounds. But Democritus looked like an apprentice at the time because Aristotle was more famous, so the people always showed favoritism on him. Aristotle radically delayed the Democritus theory for almost 2000 years. Democritus theory became superfluous at that time because because people biased on Aristotle's theory about the elements. Democritus inadvertently became one more page in the history. Too much time later, John Dalton in the year 1766 talks about the plum pudding. Plum pudding is the first model that was accepted for the atom. He discovered the electrons. So the plum pudding is a cookie. The cookie is the atom, and the electrons are the particles of the cookie. The electrons are the negative charge of the atom, and nowadays is considered, or Dalton theory is marked as the first coherent theory. And then J.J. Thomson in the year 1856 discovered the protons that are the positive charge of the atom. He said that most of the atom is empty space, but he refused a little bit Dalton theory because he said now that the protons are inside the atom in the nucleus and the electrons outside the atom. Bohr said, Then appears Bohr. Bohr is a scientist in the 1885, and he talked about energy. By this means that Bohr said that the commute of the energy are the electrons, so that the energy or electricity travels through the electrons of the atoms, so atoms are energy. Then these three scientists talks about the atom in terms of waves, velocity, position, and uncertainty. They said that the atoms emit waves to know where they are. Then about velocity and position. This is also, as I said, it's a broad topic, but the atoms have fields, and those fields have different like atomic numbers that they make it strong, weakly, and those things. So it's a part, but they mention these terms to find those things. Then talk about uncertainty is because you can't pinpoint where is the electron ever. This nowadays we know that about because the particle accelerator that is under Switzerland, the country, start working with electrons. He make them travel in a circle, and they appear, disappear, appear, disappear, and you never know where they go. So it's total uncertainty. It's almost impossible to know where they will be later or where they went. And in 1891, James Chadwick discovered the neutron. The neutron is the neutral charge of the atom and is also in the nucleus with the proton. To conclude, I post these images to refer that we have two ways. The bomb is that we can destroy with the atom, the brain is that we can create with the atom, and the space is that we can discover more things with the atom.